Well, hello, everybody. It's the Wallace and Keller show. Gary Keller and Mike Wallace talking racing and stuff. The stuff part is going to be the fun part of it, but the racing part with the Daytona 500 just coming back off of Tyler Reddick winning literally a last lap pass. And Gary, a lot to talk about. You watched it all, you've seen it all. Let's clue everybody in. Let's go for it.
Yeah, you talk about a fairy tale ending. I mean, Michael Jordan put his balls up on the table and he sued NASCAR. Okay. And the guy comes back and wins the race with one of his four drivers. How cool is that? I'm not a big Toyota guy, but you know what? I was happy for MJ. He did it right, man. What do you think?
Well, I think you just got let's look at that whole perspective and scenario. Michael Jordan. Number one, I think Michael Jordan is just a great human being. Let's start there. He was he's probably the most well known athlete, maybe next to Tiger Woods or vice versa in the world. The world is a big area. That's not just here in the US. We're talking the world. And to have him involved in NASCAR racing is a compliment to the sport. Last year, that Michael and his team decided they wanted to make the sport better. So they tried to get NASCAR to change some things. NASCAR didn't want to change them. And we have to linger on this little bit of lawsuit just to cap it off because he went through a lot of things, spent a lot of money, put a lot on the line, and they win the lawsuit and they come back and they win the Daytona 500. You
Sweet.
know how big a deal that is, Gary? I mean, I talked to numerous people in Daytona Beach, Florida, all during race week. You live in the area, you hear the excitement, but I talked to the guys at the racetrack, and there's this new revived energy. It's like everybody's like, oh, we went from thinking it was going to hurt the sport to wow, it's going to blow it out of the ballpark now. It's all new. And then for Michael's team, the 2311 team that is, primarily, we'll call it owned by Michael Jordan, but Denny Hamlin is partners with him, 50-50 partners, who knows? And they all run good. Everybody runs good. Bubba Wallace leads a lot of the race. Their cars are up front. So it's kind of like beautiful poetic justice that the Michael Jordan 2311. And then they come back and they win the race with their team car pushing them to the lead in Riley Herbst, unfortunately mobbed in a wreck at the start finish line. But I don't know. I think from Tyler Reddick, I think from the excitement of the Daytona 500, I had a few friends that I got into the races. They sent me video of the pre-race, the flyover, everything was huge. So great way to start off Daytona Speed Weeks. What's your thought?
You said it right. Fairy tale ending. I mean, this race was just a different scenario. It was 65 lead changes, only five cautions, Mike, and 37 of the 41 cars actually were involved into an accident. So the resiliency of this next gen car, I don't know. Is it good or is it bad? I don't know. But you talk about the car of tomorrow, and how are they going to pass down this next gen car down into the Xfinity series, or I call it Xfinity or Busch series. It's called O'Reilly's series at this point in time. But how are they going to do that, Mike?
Well, who knows how they're going to do that? I think, to be honest with you, Gary, I think what they should do, if I was the boss almighty for a day, I probably need a few days, not just a day. But I would just say, hey, let's leave everything the way it is for a while. Let's not even talk about any changes. O'Reilly Auto Part teams already have all their cars. They know they need no added expense. You know exactly how expensive this sport is, and that group cannot afford it. We had a record purse. I think you probably know the number, 31 or $32 million was the purse money for the Daytona 500. I think it was 700,000 up from last year. The cup cars are what you and I refer to as the cup cars. We call them the Premier Series, and afford those changes.
That's our DNA, Mike.
Yeah. Let's leave the truck series alone. Let's leave the O'Reilly Auto Parts series alone. Let's quit changing, microscoping the rules on the Premier Series. Let's go racing. I'd like to see us get away from, I don't like seeing what I call fuel mileage racing. I want to see wide open throttle to the mat every lap, driving like, the talent that our drivers have, and go from there.
Balls to the wall. I agree. Now it's fuel mileage. They're looking at fuel mileage. It all comes down to pit stops at this point in time. So who knows where it goes, Mike? I don't know. There's so many strategies here that maybe you and I don't understand them all, but it's a different animal at this point in time to what you and I knew. You know, this next gen car has created different monsters. Am I right?
Yeah, as you said, the nuances of it are a little different, but I think we got a platform. I was talking to my little brother Kenny, and he goes, "I got the cure for everything." Okay, here's the cheapest cure we can come up with: this fuel mileage deal. Go to Talladega, tell the teams with 25 laps to go, we're coming down pit road for a non-competition pit stop. Everybody top off, and you race your brains out for the last 25 laps. That's it. It's simple. We got it solved. It's over with. Doesn't even cost money.
I love Kenny. That's a great analysis.
Yeah. He gets all those race fans telling me, I had to laugh at him because he's told me on the phone late last night. He goes, do you ever realize race fans got all the answers for everything and none of them work?
Yeah.
He says that, he says if television wouldn't tell you their fuel mileage racing and shows all these apps that shows that they're off the throttle, we'd just think of back 10 years ago where we're racing 3 wide, 11 deep, just like we used to be.
I love his analysis, and Kenny is kind of getting what he deserves. He found his own niche, as you and I both know. But you know what? They're still real for you and I.
Yeah, Gary, this is a big old world, man. We're fitting in perfect. People are gonna love what we do, what you do. You're the analytical guy of our group, and I'm just gonna talk with whatever you feed me, and we'll have fun and enjoy. And we continue to do it. And but we got the Daytona 500 behind us. It's over with. It's done. We move on to the next race now.
I got to talk about the unfairness of the Daytona 500 and how well you know that. I know that too, but not to the extreme that you know that. From last year, you were promised, come on down, Mike, from the president and CEO of NASCAR. Come on down. We look forward to seeing you next week. And you thought, I'm shit high cotton. You went through a tough time with the death of your wife. And I am so sorry. Carla was a wonderful woman. You have a wonderful family, and you were looking forward to that, coming down to that appearance at the Daytona 500 to make the resurrection of your career. It wasn't that you were going to race full time. It was just you wanted to make a statement for one last time, just one last time. What the hell's the matter with that? And
I
then
don't
you
know.
got denied.
I tell people today that I'm still somewhat. I don't want to use the word devastated over that. I'm just hurt. I'm just hurt from that. That for the people that didn't know, I was going to run the Daytona 500 in 2025. I was going to run a tribute to my wife Carla, who was my wife for 44 years, passed away with ovarian cancer in a very secretive battle with the disease. And everything was great up until a few days before everything was supposed to happen, and I was told I wasn't eligible. I wasn't qualified enough to run the Daytona 500, even though I had 820 something NASCAR starts, 11 Daytona 500s. But you sometimes find the real side of people, and I seen the real side of people that I didn't like to see. They don't even have a good reason, then they change their mind on me. But you know what? I'm over that. I really am. They took that opportunity away. There was no way to duplicate that. NASCAR's come back to me and goes, hey, just go truck racing and run a few truck races, run a few Xfinity races, and we will then clear you to run the Premier Series." And it's like, I can't find sponsors for those. I can find it for the Daytona 500. But, Gary, sometimes in life, we've been dealt different cards. I've been dealt some of the worst things in life in the world. And for NASCAR not to want me in the Daytona 500, I guess it was just whatever it is. And I really, frankly, at this time in my life, don't care any longer. I'm having fun doing things I'm doing. You and I are talking about bullshitting on a podcast, and we talk crap about the good and the bad and the ugly of the sport, and we've all experienced in it. And everybody's been dealt the wrong hand in life. sometime or another, but the only way you're going to progress through it is get over it, move on. And so right before I got on with you today, I got a call. I'm invited to go to the players golf tournament TPC Sawgrass down there in Jacksonville, Florida, or Ponte Bardi, Florida, here on my birthday week of March 10th. So I'm going from the Daytona 500 to watch the Players Championship.
I'll be there, baby. I'll watch your teeing off. You know what it's all about? Before we started this podcast today, I heard Lindsay hook us up and I heard your grandchild talk about you and the accolades and the love. You could see that and hear it in his voice. That's what it's all about, Mike. So, we'll get back to you as a racer here in a little bit. And I know we only got a half hour here, but you have so much to be grateful for. I mean, we talk about the unfairness of the Daytona 500, and I want the audience to listen to me here for just 1 second about Anthony Alfredo. He actually made a race. He raced himself into the race, and you're familiar with this scenario, Mike. And he was disqualified because of a transaxial cooling hose that was loose. Now, this is a one-man full-time team, Beard Motorsports. How in the hell can you, after you see that scenario of a one-man full-time team guy, and just because of a situation like that, you're going to disqualify him from the Daytona 500, and then you put in the guy who replaces him, BJ McLeod, which I like BJ, no problem against him, but the first caution flag that was called was from BJ McLeod. I felt so bad for this kid. Just like you and I were talking about Corey LaJoy, 15th fastest in qualifying. What the hell is that scenario? Doesn't make the race? Tell me about it, Mike.
Yeah, Gary, I sometimes, they say in life, common sense should prevail. Uh, and I don't think in the Beard Motorsports car getting disqualified because of a vent hose, I don't think that's where common sense prevailed at all. I know people say, well, it's got to be what it's got to be. You got to set a rule standard. Well, I don't agree with that. I think there's a thing to look at and go, did this really have a competitive advantage? This is a little small race team that did well enough to get themselves qualified in the race. Let them race. Need them. This is that's the underdog story that they need to make the broadcast. You got to have somebody that isn't a hero team every race. I mean, otherwise, you're sitting there talking about what I call 36 hero teams. Every one of those teams should win a race. There's not a one of them that shouldn't win the race. But the little beard team wasn't supposed to get in the race, wasn't, I feel bad for him, I really do. BJ, unfortunately, his incidents, there was a lot of belief just on the broadcast. Harvick made a point to think that the right rear tire was loose, and that's what, got him spun around there. But it is what it is, and again, there's years ago, we had a sheet in our business, and I called it a FAB sheet, FAB, and it stood across the top. It stood for features, advantages, and benefits. And we were trying to sell equipment. We were in the vacuum cleaner and janitorial supply business. If we could put something under the features section was good. If we put something under the advantage section was good. But if we couldn't put anything under the benefits section, it didn't matter how great all the features and advantages were. Well, in that beard situation, there was nothing in the benefit column. There wasn't nothing good. And, now I'm going to get redneck on this. When I grew up, there's old saying that said, keep it simple, stupid, or you can't fix stupid. And making a decision to disqualify that car was, they'll argue all day long. Well, it's the rules. It's the rules. Oh, yeah, right. You're right. Every rule's got a tolerance, and I think that's sometimes in motorsports, this sport grew off of. We got to remember they used to race on the beach, they used to run moonshine in the mountains, they used to do this and all that. It wasn't so perfect, and it was fun, and it would be nice, seriously, if it just kind of got. You got to have rules, but you don't have to go stupid with every minute detail.
we know that rules were made to be broken. That was our DNA that we grew up with. That was the DNA that your father, Russ Wallace, grew up in. You break the rules, you do what you have to do. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes because I want to start this in a few minutes about the Wallace tradition. I mean, I was honored enough to meet your mother and father back in St. Louis when I was racing with a different team. I was doing my own deal. Kenny Hendricks, as you know, Kenny was a driver for me back in, I can't remember what year that was, but I think it was about 2006. I was honored enough to meet your mother and your father. Your mother is still alive. Your father has passed away. But oh my gosh, what a great tribute and a great family that you came from. I mean, there's been three families that have had at least three brothers that have been able to race in a NASCAR series. There's been the Flocks from back in the 40s and 50s. There's been the Bodines and there's been the Wallaces. And at this point in time, the Wallaces are the concentration camp per se, because the success of Kenny's Coffee with Kenny, we all know about that. But Mike, you and I have known each other for a long time. I mean, your dad, and I was so honored to meet him in St. Louis at that point in time and talk to him and have a little bit of dialogue with him. What a great gentleman. A guy that won 400 races, but he was so proud of his boys, man. It wasn't all about him. He didn't give two shits about the fact that he won 400 races. He was proud by the fact that he had three boys that was racing in a NASCAR series. You know what I'm saying? Tell me about that. That's huge.
Gary, we sometimes need to be reminded from our family perspective of how fortunate our family, the Wallace family, is three brothers. That's it. There's Rusty's oldest. I'm the middle brother, then Kenny. We grew up, we always used the town of St. Louis, Missouri, because everybody knows where St. Louis is. But actually grew up in a little town called Arnold, Arnold, Missouri. It's just a little suburb south of St. Louis. We all went to Fox High School.
Tri-City Speedway, close to
Well, we all grew up. Let me rephrase. We all, myself and my father, Russ Wallace, raced at Tri City Speedway, which is over in Granite City, Illinois. It's over by the big NASCAR track. We lived south of that, and we raced at a racetrack called Lake Hill Speedway. We raced a racetrack called St. Charles Speedway in Belle Claire. These are little bitty racetracks. This is what you call your Friday, Saturday, Sunday night racing. It was so much fun. I mean, you got to remember too, Gary, we didn't just race at these racetracks. When we were kids, we grew up at them. We sold snow cones. We sold sodas in the grandstands. I remember, when you used to go to the ballpark and you had the tray that went over to the front of you and the wrap that comes around your neck, and you got 24 drinks in there and you'd sell them in a cup. I did that. And he did that. I mean, we're little kids, but we were part of the racing community. And, people sitting in the grandstands either loved or hated my father. And the only reason they hated him because he won all the time. Seriously, they didn't even know him.
400 races, Mike. I don't care if you're playing tiddlywinks. How can you win 400 races doing anything? That is a racer, man. He was
Yeah,
ahead of his time.
as you know, Gary, one of the greatest compliments that a race car driver can get is being called a racer. That's like in your own world being called a Hall of Famer. He's a racer. And what does a racer mean? A racer means that his heart and soul and everything is into the business, the sport. Back when my dad raced, it was totally a sport. It was a hobby, is what it was. But they tell us, and I don't remember it. Mom was told today. My mom's 88 years old and healthy as can be. She remembers the time her fighting in the grandstands with the people because they hated her husband. And she still is full of, as they say, vinegar as you can be, and telling people she gives her opinion whether you want to hear it or not. And we had a great time. We grew up in such a wonderful time of life and family. We were connected, man. We were like that all the time. The three brothers, mom and dad, we went everywhere together. I mean, our first date to the 500 was all together. We traveled in a car from St. Louis, Missouri, down to watch, the David Pierce and Richard Petty crash on the last lap, come to the start finish line. So it was It was fun. Our family are wonderful. We love each other immensely. We're all doing a little bit of something different. As first of all, mom's healthy. I see her all the time. She lives not too far from me. She'll come by, check on the grandkids. We'll go out to dinner. Rusty and his family live up what we call in the lake area. Rusty's actively involved in the car dealership business, but they have a deal that they do custom motorcycles. They'll be down in your neck of the woods in a week or so for Bike Week. They'll be out there peddling these $100,000 motorcycles they sell, and it'll be a, what do they call it, broken spoke or broken spur or something out there, and that's where they set up camp at.
Right. He and Steven are doing their motorcycle deal down here in Daytona. They have for the last couple of years. But you guys, your family is rounding third and heading for home, Mike. And what a great scenario. Like I said, I met your parents in St. Louis, and it was such a great tribute or a great honor for me to meet them because I didn't even realize what I was really experiencing. But, your dad was so proud. And, what I was getting at is that I want to tell you, yes, Rusty Wallace is one of the top 50 of all time. We all know that. 234 or 242 mile an hour at Talladega. Nobody does that shit. Nobody. Nobody. Even back then. He just did it because it's here available to me, so I'm going to take it and go with it. And he did. And 242 and hydroplaning across the start-finish line, that's incredible. But the Wallace family, I'm so proud by the fact that I've known you all. I've known Rusty, not very well, known Kenny, cusses like a sailor, as you and I well know. But you, Mike, I'm so proud of you because I've known you as a friend. I have great respect for you because you've honored yourself in a respectable way. And I'm so glad we're doing this podcast and getting it out there to the world, not just Kenny. And I'm so happy for Kenny by the fact that he's doing so well with his podcast, but now it's your turn. And that's why I'm here. I want to see you have your turn. Mike Wallace, the other brother.
Well, we're going to have a great time, Gary, and you and I have, as you've already echoed in the conversation so far, we've known each other for a long time. You mentioned Kenny Hendrick, who is a buddy of mine. I talked to him, a fair amount. We talked about doing a little WRC racing together last year, which is a form of road racing. Kenny's got a very successful car, a little high-end car dealership here in the Charlotte metro area up by the lake. That was our connection to first getting to know each other, and I think we're both going to have a lot of fun doing this podcast together, talking about both our careers. You talk about mine as a racer, and we'll talk about you as a car owner, a race fan, an individual that just loves the sport. You make your money in a totally different way in the restoration business, but you wanted to own cars, you wanted to be part of, and you like being part of it. We could talk for hours upon hours, which we don't have time at each podcast, but we'll continue to do that throughout the year and throughout each race. Discuss our careers. We'll find out, some of the things that, from a car owner's perspective, that you had to deal with and did deal with. The guys that treated you good and the jerk offs that didn't treat you good, and and it's all there. And those are some of the stories that people like to hear. They don't know nothing. But hey, let me jump off for a second, Gary. Not jump off, but I'm talking about you echoing your career. But did you see that they just posted this morning that they believe that a fan jumped out of the grandstands yesterday at Daytona or on Sunday and threw the ashes of someone on the racetrack during as the cars were coming by, and they claim they found him, and now they're going to bar him forever, because that's illegal to do that or whatever. But that's how passionate race fans are. Somebody, took somebody's last testament, last will, and went, whoever it was, they said, "Man, throw me in front of the crowd of the field at the Daytona 500, and damn it if somebody didn't get it on video."
Well, what that is, that's the residuals of the NASCAR fan throughout the years. And that was a guy that probably been around for a long time, and he wanted his DNA to be spread throughout the the Central Florida plain per se. So good for him. Is it right or indifferent? I don't know. That's a little bit overboard of what I would expect, but it is
Well,
what it
I
is.
mean, you do have to admit, though, there was humor to it, right? I mean, I don't, maybe it's not exactly the way the law reads and all that type of stuff, but the guy that told them that got spread over the Daytona 500 and got blown all over the place as the cars come by and they were wrecking in the background, right? Had to be going, yeah, that's exactly the way I wanted it.
Well, yeah, God bless his soul, Michael.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we'll go on with the Wallace family in the next several episodes because we can't cover it in just one because there's so much history in the Wallace family and so many stories that I want to know about. I mean, I know about the vacuum cleaning business with your Uncle Gary. I know a little bit scenario about that, but the time frames of what you experienced with getting to your race car career. And we're gonna talk about that in the next several segments, okay? I just want you to know that this is not closed and done. We're gonna continue with it. And with your dad, Russ, and your mom, God love her soul, she just keeps on hanging on and keeps on keeping on. And speaking of that, I want to talk about keep on keeping on. You have great affiliation with several dynamic people in this world. I mean, we talk about Cash Patel. I want to tell the audience about that, and we'll get to that, the political aspect of our show. And Vive Varsamic, he's running for governorship of the state of Ohio. But, you met several weeks ago, not several, but 2 or 3 weeks ago, with one of my favorite arms in chief is Joel Osteen. And we're going to talk about that too. I mean, how many people get to meet Joel? I mean, he's been blessed. He took his father's ministry. He didn't expect to ever be involved in that ministry. He took it and took it to probably 5 or 6 times of what his father ever expected. And you got to meet him in his chambers. And we'll talk about that too. But I mean, the affiliation and the introductions that you've met because of your accolades in NASCAR has been astronomical. And you reached out and you made that happen for yourself.
Yeah, Gary, you know what's really unique about that? I sometimes I forget the fortunate opportunities I've had in life, the people that I've met, and the reason I've met them. And the reason I sometimes forget about it is because we are in such a competitive world. I'm always, for my whole racing career, when I was a full time NASCAR driver, I was always compared to my older brother Rusty, and he's one of the greatest NASCAR drivers ever. And I think I told you this story before. People look at me and go, "Oh man, you suck compared to your brother." And it's like, I got it, man. I mean, okay, yeah, I do. But I won 20 more races than you ever thought of, you know? And I tell my kids this story, they see it, they live it. We're somewhere down. I mean, I'm doing this podcast from my daughter's house today, uh, they know what goes on and they go, Dad, do you realize how many great things we have got to do as a family together because of what you've accomplished and the people that you have met? And I was apologizing to him not too long ago about saying, well, I'm sorry I wasn't, the greatest dad in regards to taking you all these, the national parks and all that you hear people take their kids to throughout the years. And they go, yep. Well, you name one other dad that got their kids on the space shuttle on the launch pad at Kennedy Space Center. We did. We sat in, a space shuttle on the launch pad. It was going to get launched the following week because of the people you know. I got to fly. She says, I got to fly in a jet at Warner Robins Air Force Base because of people you know. You flew with the Blue Angels. And she gives me this whole list. Like she's into the psyche of my head. I was like, damn, Lynn, I feel better about myself already. So, the fun part is we can, through our podcast we're going to do, and I'm really looking forward to it. We can take different segments and break it down that it's just a life story. It's fun. It's the people you meet. I mean, it's just kind of like yourself. How did you and I meet? We kind of remember it's years ago. I mean, but at the same time, you learn different things. I mean, I remember the time you and you helped me buy an old school bus out of the Ohio area that we made into a party bus. And you were nice enough to deliver it to me. You drove it down, and some other things. I mean, you didn't have to. You dropped it off, literally got in your truck or a buddy and turned around and went back home. And it was like, wow. We still got that party bus, just to let you know.
Oh, God love you. That tickles me. But listen, we don't have a whole lot of time here. We got to finish up and get ready for episode 3. But I want to tell you something. Listen, I know that Rusty Wallace is one of the top drivers in the history of NASCAR. We all know that. Okay. And anybody listening to this podcast knows that. Kenny Wallace, he's got the gift of gab. And God love Kenny. He's so good at what he does. And you and I both know that. But you know what? I want to tell you something. I've known you for a long time. You drove for me. I watched your career before and after me. I want you to know that you're an above average race car driver. You're not just a Wallace brother, but you're an above average NASCAR driver. And I want you to know that. And I'm so pleased to be affiliated with you. And we're going to continue with this podcast, and we're going to continue to get listeners. And we're going to continue to be blessed by the good Lord, which you and I both believe in. And it's a good day. Thank you, Mike Wallace. I love you. And let's see where this goes.
Oh, we'll have fun with it, Gary. Hey, while I'm talking to you, talking about Rusty, let me give him a little plug, right? Here's the name of his motorcycle company. I got a Southern Country T-shirt on today, and that's kind of funny. But yeah, we got great things to talk about. And as we go, Gary, we're talking about our family. I and you both have a lot of great friends in this sport, our acquaintances in this sport, and we're going to get those folks to come on with us. This isn't just going to be you and I all the time. We're going to have some great guests from the motorsports world. We're going to have some great guests from the movie Hollywood world. We're going to have some politicians on. I've got a little connected up there in Washington, and got some people to talk. So this is going to be a wide ranging show. It's going to have a lot of fun things, and don't think it's just the old every week's going to be motorsports. It might be the quick recap of motorsports, but we're going to have fun people on, and we might even create a little controversy along the way. And you mentioned Joel Osteen. You never know. Joel might come on and hang out with us for a little bit.
He would. Knowing you can sell cholesterol. I know that, and you know that. But thank you, Mike Wallace. Episode 2 is now officially over, so let's get ready for number 3. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be with you soon. See you all.